Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Good afternoon, Michael Malice here, and let that be your welcome for the next hour. This is going to be probably my favorite episode we've ever done. A lot of you have been asking about this for a very long time. I've been trying to get a hold of Yeon-mi Park while she's in New York so we could do it in person because this means a lot to me. For those you don't know, she's the author of In Order to Live, and she is probably the world's most famous North Korean refugee. And obviously both of us have done a lot of work to try to take down this evil regime. It's a little more personal for her, but I try to do my small part. Yeon-mi, welcome to the show. Konnichiwa, I think, as you people say.
It's in Japanese, I think, Michael. What? No, 안녕하세요. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored.
There's a lot of basic information that people can get about North Korea. They can find online. They can find my book. Let's get into some more technical stuff because this is a rare opportunity to talk to someone who's been there and who managed to escape. A lot of times when I'm talking about North Korea, I'm the one who's explaining the information to the audience. And I think a lot of times I'm going to get something a little bit wrong. So can you explain to the people what North Korea's social credit Songbun system is and how that works?
Yeah, I think social credit is more like the current China right now under the Communist Party is. It's about like giving people a score based on their behavior. But the North Korea's system with a status in their birth status is almost like, it's not like what you do affects. It's almost like which family bloodline you were born into. But depending on what my great-grandfather did before the Korean War and where he lived between like in the Korean Peninsula, was in the South, and which army was he joined? Did he join the army? Based on all of that, my family status, they decide which class I am in. So basically they divide into 3 big classes, and then among the 3 big classes, they divide into something like 50 different like subclasses. And this is a very highly classified information. And most of common people, we just vaguely know, am I in the middle, am I in the bottom, but we don't know exactly what status are we.
But you were from Pyongyang.
No, so I was born in the northern part of North Korea. And my father had a business in Pyongyang, and that's where he got arrested. So I've been to Pyongyang, but my father was the one who was living in Pyongyang substantial amount of time.
But my understanding, and please correct me, because this is why I have you here, is that you have to have a pretty high Songbun to even step foot in Pyongyang. Because I've met refugees, and they ask me, oh, what's it like? Because they weren't allowed to even go there.
Exactly. So my father was a party member, and I guess back then I thought I was pretty, middle class. But after I met so many diplomats from North Korea, I wasn't even any close to elite. But I guess I was in general population, I was in the middle. So he was in the party. He was able to get a permit to visit Pyongyang and have a business there.
When you went to Pyongyang and then you went back home, were all your friends asking you questions about what it's like?
Yeah, it was almost, when people here, our dream is not about going to our capital, right? Being in America, we can go to this Washington anytime we want, if we really want. But as you said, in North Korea, there's no freedom of movement. So whenever, all our classmates, we ask, what's your dream? And they say, in my lifetime, I want to visit our capital in Pyongyang. So that was a huge thing for all my classmates and neighbors.
When you went there, you're only going to have a very limited understanding of the outside world being raised in North Korea, obviously, and you're taught how wonderful it is. Were you amazed by it? Were you disappointed? What was your reaction?
Of course, I was just amazed beyond anything. Because most of the roads in Haesan were all not cement. It's just all mud. And in Pyongyang, you see this cemented roads, and you see cars on the road. So I did not know how to watch the crosswalk. Those red light means stop. I didn't even know how to read them. In the countryside, we have no cars. In Pyongyang, suddenly there are like crosswalks. And there are also like the neon signs at night with the restaurant signs.
Yeah.
In North Korea, like in the countryside, we didn't have any like culture of going out to eat. So yeah, it was everything taking in bus, public bus, or like subway in my first time. In Haesan, like there was no like public transportation like that. So everything was so new. It almost felt like, it didn't feel like North Korea that I knew. It felt like going to almost a different country.
Yeah, it was really revelatory to me coming from New York to there, and also the people in Pyongyang, as you obviously know, they're very proud of themselves. Oh, we get to live in Pyongyang. We're not like these hicks in the countryside. Like we're the important people. This Songbun system is something I think most Americans don't appreciate, where you are assigned at birth based on what your grandparents did. And how much does this affect your life, and what are the effects?
It affects you forever until your grave. So the tricky thing about this Songbun system is that usually in other like cultures we see, if you marry somebody from high class, right, you kind of marry up. You go with your husband. I mean, a lot of Asian countries that had a caste system. But in North Korea, the only thing you do is going down. There's no such a thing you can go up unless like something happens and Kim Il-sung personally said like take care of this person. And therefore, when like someone from coming lower class and dating some higher class, when they marry, the higher class family going down with them. That's how I think the regime was preventing people mixing with different classes and maintaining this, different like status quo.
So one of the things in North Korea is whenever you refer to one of the leaders, you can't just say their name. You have to say General Kim Il-sung or the dear leader Kim Jong-il, Comrade Kim Jong-il. You just said Kim Il-sung. Did it take you a lot of time to get used to saying his name without having some kind of title?
Absolutely, yeah. Even like in my, like after my escape to China, I wasn't afraid to say those names without those, respectful titles in my mind.
Yeah.
I wasn't even there to think that in my mind. And that's the point, like the brainwashing goes, like even in my mind, I was afraid to think. And so I think it was really helpful for me to go to South Korea and realize that the, dictator wasn't God.
Yeah.
Then I started realizing, okay, I can commit this thought crimes, starting thinking that way, I can think first and then saying it afterwards.
So something people in the West don't appreciate is many refugees have a very poor opinion of Kim Jong-il, but they still think Kim Il-sung is the greatest person, or he's amazing, or he's at least more complicated. Why is that the perspective from refugees?
So I'm not sure. I met some people who lived in Soviet Union time, like their grandmas, and they talk about how some things were better back then. So maybe that kind of like, whenever you think about your young time, always you kind of think of it nicely, right? And the thing is, like during the Kim Il-sung time, there was a lot of foreign aid from the the other communist countries, right? Soviet Union didn't collapse. And China was still really helping North Korea. A lot of other communist countries in the world were helping each other. So Kim Il-sung time, there wasn't that much of starvation. And, also North Korea did better than South Korea in the 60s and 70s. And that's why people thought that was Kim Il-sung who did it. They don't really understand how other countries were helping him to do all of that. And whenever Kim Jong-il, the second Kim, took over, all people remember is the Gonane Hingun, the arduous march, right? That's how he began his journey as a leader. And all we know is like hunger and death and oppression. So I think that's why like a lot of, I know like even when we go to South Korea, the place called the Hanawan, it's like a re-education center for like defectors to adjust to new freedom and democracy. And there they started teaching us, like Korean War began by North Korea, not the South Korean America. And then like a lot of defectors are really having heated debates. Is Kim Il-sung is good or bad? But a lot of them, I know like 80% of them think Kim Il-sung is like so much better and he doesn't deserve a dictator title. So it's pretty sad.
One of the interesting things about reading North Korean propaganda, which I use to write my book, is it's not very subtle. So there's a book in North Korea just explicitly called U.S. Imperialists Started the Korean War, which proves this. And I've been told that since this is so central to the North Korean mythology, that, you know, the U.S. imperialists want to invade at any minute. If it's not for the leader, Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung, that we're going to come and kill everybody.
Right.
And the Korean War was very devastating to, you know, the entire Korean peninsula. But for refugees to learn that Kim Il-sung started the Korean War, it's been described as trying to tell Americans that FDR attacked the Japanese in Hawaii. Like, they can't wrap their heads around it. Was it hard for you to accept this?
Oh yeah, I mean, when we heard that, like, so Korean War is such a coin, like stone for the main thing for the regime to keep like justifying their behavior, right? The Americans came and invaded and killed our people, our women and children. They have these museums to show us how evil Americans are. And therefore, what we need is like we need our dear leader to defend us from our enemies. We are still in war with our enemies. And that's why Korean War, they can never tell us that they started. So when we went to South Korea and we heard that Kim Il-sung started the war, there was no any invasion, no attack on them. It makes no sense that Kim Jong-un even develops nukes, right?
Right.
There's no way. So this is like the main thing that the regime has hide. And when we heard that, we couldn't believe it. And I mean, this is the thing. I truly believe the entire propaganda that Kims were gods and loved us, you know. If we sacrifice, we can go to the paradise with them after our death, all of it. But like once I go to South Korea and people told me, you know, everything that you believed was a lie. Then I was thinking, so how, if that was a lie, how do I know that you are not lying to me?
Right.
That was a really challenging part for me to overcome, how to trust again. You know, it's like people talk about this mattress, the simulation. It felt like that. It's like, why people like keep lying and like, what's the truth? I was very confused in the beginning.
Well, you're also were trained since you were a kid. The South Koreans are U.S. puppets, that they're full of lies. They say the worst things about North Korea and they hate us and blah, blah, blah. This is all propaganda. So they're preparing you, if you escape, to be like, oh, this is all lies from you anyway.
Yeah. So it was, a lot of people saying, oh, they went too far. You know, like when there's like a Korean where Kim Il-sung started and people, a lot of adults were like just openly saying to the South Korean officials, you guys went too far with that. So it was like, it took like 3 months. So they would like show a lot of documentaries and they said, how does it make sense that, you know, North took over South Korea for like in 3 days to until the Busan? It doesn't make no sense. What do you think? And then some people smart like figured out like, okay, how is it possible, right? If that was like, but like some people really take time to understand it too.
Hey guys, Michael Malice here. I want to take a second to tell you about Blue Block's blue eyeglasses. If you go to blublox.com/you're welcome, you get 15% off, or just use the code welcome at checkout. What are they? These are these awesome blue light glasses that block the blue light coming off your screens that cause eye strain. You don't want to be blue pilled, do you? You want to be red pilled like me and Yeon-mi. So they're available in prescription, non-prescription readers. They have frames for every need. For every pair you buy, they donate a pair of reading glasses to someone in need. And look, you spend all day looking at your screens, you get headaches, you start feeling like your energy is low. This is something that every scientist will tell you, even the ones who don't study computers, they know. If you have trouble sleeping, Blue Blox is here to help. Why does Blue Blox exist? Because the founders of Blue Blox were not happy with the quality and lack of science behind the leading glass brands, so they decided to make their own. I love it. If you go to blublox.com/you're welcome or enter code welcome at checkout, you get 15% off and free shipping worldwide, except to North Korea. I'll double check on that. Let's get back to the show. Let's talk about what North Korea is the most homogenous and racist country in the world. Everyone who's a citizen is a Korean. You're only going to see Korean people, maybe a few diplomats. Was it weird for you coming to like New York and seeing a lot of diversity? It's a very big change from what you're used to.
Yeah, so that was really something new that I didn't expect, like the how race was something so heated discussion in the world. And also I didn't even know how many races existed. I mean, I heard about Americans, but they were like all the school posters we had. It's not like they were showing us we're, handsome like DiCaprio, American, right? They like draw them with like big nose and green. I'm sure you know that how like our soldiers like hear them in their heart. They literally just grab the American hearts out of their chest. Like that's the literal rhetoric in school everywhere. And so I didn't even have the concept of being, white or black or Mexican or Hispanic, none of that. And in North Korea, by the way, like they call me like Kim Il Sung Minjok, like Kim Il Sung people. They said I was Kim Il Sung race. So I was more like identified myself with the Kim Il Sung race than Asian.
Well, you're not going to be the same as the Japanese. Certainly, they're the devil.
Right. So they don't like really tell us like you guys are Asians. They tell us like you guys are Kim Il Sung people. We are Kim Il Sung race. And I thought, okay, maybe we are Kim Il Sung race and going to New York. Like I was just Asian, and everybody else is like all have different race. And yeah, it was just fascinating and see just how various people were.
There's a lot of conflicting information about how much North Koreans know about the concentration camps. There's, I think, Kwanliso is what they're called.
Yeah.
And there's different types of camps based on the really bad ones where you're not coming out,
Yeah.
and there's some where people get to escape. How much did you know about these camps when you were in North Korea?
So I mean, we all know because a lot
Okay.
of people disappear, right? Like in our neighborhoods, like I mean, we see public executions occasionally, and of course, there are a lot of people disappear, and we all know like the first thing my mom taught me as a young girl was, not to even whisper because the birds and mice could hear me.
Oh,
So
wow.
as a young girl, I was always knew how to. I mean, literally, this is the thing. Like my mom said, the most powerful weapon posing you got in your body is your tongue. Watch out what you say. And this is like even in subconsciously,
Yep.
how not to think about bad things about that regime, as I was saying. And therefore, we did not know exactly where they were, but of course we knew there was something called the Galiso, and if someone does like commit a political crime, like saying I don't like the system, that was a political crime. Then it doesn't just only take that person out, right? It takes like 3 to 8 generation of the person relate to that person. So is it called like guilt by association?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
family punishment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim Il Sung said, class enemies must be exterminated to 3 generations, like weeds.
Yeah, so some of them even up to 8 generations. Like
Wow, I didn't know that.
Samsung. Yeah, so when the uncle Samsung Tech got, he was executed by Kim Jong-un, they took out like 8 generation. And we don't even know what that means. So basically anyone remotely close to him are all gone. So they don't like leave any, so like some people like, let's say, only take the 3 generation out, there might be somebody related might want to have revenge. So they really completely eliminate that possibility, and you might be like having rebellious feeling towards the regime. And so we all knew that was like, what we were dealing with.
One of the things that I was raised, I was born in the Soviet Union. I came here when I was very young, but you're raised with this kind of Soviet mentality. I'm curious if you had the same thing. For a very long time as an adult, whenever I was talking to someone, before I said something, I would ask myself, if this person turned against me, should I tell them this information? And I would watch what I was saying. I mean, that must have been what your mentality was like the entire time.
Well, I mean, the thing is like, when I was in North Korea, like I didn't even say anything, right?
Okay, yeah.
I didn't even know that was an option to express my thoughts. So like when I came to South Korea, when they told me like introduce yourself, I was very, very confused. Like in North Korea, I don't matter. We don't say what I like. We don't say, what my dreams are. We always talk about collective we. Like we like this. We want to achieve this. We want our nation to do this. We the people, right? So I never been introducing myself in my entire life in North Korea. So saying the thing like I was very unnatural for me. And I think that was a very harder struggle to keep saying like what I have to keep telling like what I think, what I want to be, like what I want to study. Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about, growing up and these criticism and self-criticism sessions or sessions on organizational life. Can you explain to Americans, when I talk about North Korea, I talk about there's all these layers of oppression. It's not just you have to go to school and learn stupid things. It's 24/7 that they're watching you and controlling your life. Can you explain what these sessions are?
So this is like if you are an artist or high official, you have to do this self-criticism every 2 days. So
wow.
Yeah, and then some groups do like twice a week. And if you're really average citizen and students, you do once a week, every Saturdays. And I had to do it since I was like 9 years old, maybe younger a bit. We have to bring our like red note because like red is something communist revolutionary color. And then, like as I said, I was keep saying North Korea is a religious cult because they were copying the Bible. And so Kim Il Sung said like he loved our like people so much he gave us his son Jesus Christ, right, Kim Jong Il. And when he dies, by his spirit is with us forever. Therefore, he knows like what we think. And I'm sorry, somebody's just calling me.
Oh, no
It's
worries.
going to be edited, right? I don't know how to bring it back.
This is even funnier. I'm here. I can see you.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
You're a boomer.
Oh my god, where are you?
Yeon-mi Park is a boomer.
Okay, got it. I don't have anyone to teach me this. Okay, so with this note, we literally write down the verses that Kim Il Sung said or Kim Jong Il said. So as a bad revolutionary, you have to work for your like comrades, your nation. And we said this week, compared to his verses, I didn't like live faithfully. But gracious our dear leader forgave my sin and I'm repenting my sin. Then this is a tricky part is that though, like think about Christianity, it's all about forgiveness, right? You are a sinner, but you are forgiven. And you forgive your neighbors,
Yes.
the people who do the wrong. But in North Korea, it's opposite. Every person must find somebody to criticize. So when we are in school, like 9 years old, we don't have friends. We don't have the vocabulary. We only have words comrade. There's a huge difference between friends and comrade. So in North Korea, right, we always say 동무. We don't say 친구. That's a South Korean thing. So we have to find a classmate to criticize them, and they have to find somebody. And that makes like drill into our brain that somebody's watching, that we have to watch our behavior. And that self-criticism, myself and criticizing other, continues until you die. So it really plants this trust between people.
Yeah.
I think that's what's like most heartbreaking for me is that people don't trust each other. And the regime forces us not to trust each other because, we are forced to criticize them every week.
Hey guys, want to take a second and thank our newest sponsor, Fume, F-U-M. So what is Fume? This is a great alternative to cigarettes and vaping. It looks like a steampunk vape. It's a hollow piece of Canadian maple, and they have different cores which are infused with the benefits of the world's super plants. So it's this little kind of foamy thing. You shred it, you stick it into the core, and then it functions in a sense. There's no smoke, but you have the hand motions of smoking because that's the ritual is something that smokers find very difficult to prevent them from quitting. They've got black pepper cores to help you quit, peppermint for better breath, lavender for relaxation. It's a great nicotine craving reducer. If you go to fumessential.com, there's more than half a dozen flavors. They explain the whole program. And if you use promo code Malice10, you get 10% off your entire order. I don't want you guys to be smoking cigarettes. And this looks really, really cool. I'm not going to lie. Let's get back to the show. One of the things that I talked to another refugee about was that when these people vanished and got sent to the camps or whatever, her response wasn't, oh, what a shame. She was like, good, they deserved it. They shouldn't have done the wrong thing. Was that your kind of impression of it?
Oh, well, I mean, so whenever government, like sometimes they kill somebody and then, so like literally one of my sister's classmates, her mom executed one day, just like in front of all our town of people. I didn't go, but my parents went. And then
they had to go there, right? It's mandatory.
Yeah, it's mandatory. Yeah, so it's mandatory. And they went or saw her got executed a lot of other people. And the crime was she was one day like selling, when you're baking, what is a baking soda like make
yeast.
The pop? Yeah, yeast. So she was selling yeast, but her business was really doing well in the black market. And then just like somebody I think reported on her that she was receiving money from South Korean intelligence. So therefore they just killed her. 3 months later, they found out that she wasn't a spy. She was just a really good salesperson in the black market. But then, so my sister's best friend, she sent to college afterwards, and then they brought her back with her uncle, and then all they did was not even saying sorry. It's like, just get out, and that's why they came back. But So people like don't even know, like we don't even know the concept that we have to feel like question it or feel not like, rebellious. We thought like, okay, I guess she wasn't a spy. And that's all, that was all our reaction was literally.
Yeah, what people don't appreciate is that people who get sent to these camps in North Korea sometimes get to leave. Now, they're also not allowed to talk about their experiences. I'm sure you didn't ask her about it or anything like that, right?
No, yeah. It's you don't want to really get involved to anything that is like even yeah, as a friend, of course you like as you said, we have a system like classes, right? And if they become like that, they are not in the same class like us.
Oh,
We
they're
don't
like
really,
untouchables. Yeah. We
yeah.
don't want to
So
be stained by them.
yeah. So we really cannot. So that's why as soon as my father was arrested, my father thankfully was not a political crime. It was economic crime. He was engaged in the black market business. But still, like that means my blood was tainted. That I was not a pure like revolutionary blood anymore. And my options were like so limited.
What was your reaction and where were you when you learned that Kim Jong-il wasn't born in Mount Pektu?
Oh wow! I mean, that was in South Korea several years after my escape, and I read in a book that he wasn't born in Manpaktu, but I mean, that's the thing. Like back then, I wasn't. I just thought somehow that somebody was making up. I was more like hard to believe all those facts. So what are they talking about? I thought, Baktu was like the Jeongnilbong in the Baktu mountain, like all those like how many feet, everything, right? I remember like watching or had to memorize in school which day Kim Jong-il was born, how many rainbows, how many birds were crying, like how much the at altitude of the mountain, the I don't know, his house in Mount Back, all of it. I had to really memorize everything. And suddenly like was so lying.
Uh, it's just one of the things I want to hear you talk about is there are a few refugees who actually are returning to North Korea after going to the South, and that they're treated very poorly, and that refugees, when South Koreans hear their accent, right away treat North Koreans like garbage. Like, how much truth is there to that story?
Absolutely true. Yeah. I mean, I know that's like when people talk about like America, what a racist country this is, right? And I never felt more home than any place than being in America. I mean, there's a reason why I'm living here. When I'm in South Korea, even though I'm saying Korean, and of course there's an accent, but do we treat somebody differently because they are having like northern or southern accents? We don't do that. So the different accent is almost like British and American English difference, right? Northerners are a bit more like strict and different way of just saying it, but still it's like we can communicate, we understand, it's very understandable difference. And as soon as we go to, of course, South Korea, we become second citizens, literally second citizens. And recently with the South Korean new government, new administration, right, they passed a law to ban the activities that what I've been doing, getting information inside North Korea, that became criminalized. Wow. So for defectors, we don't even have freedom of speech in South Korea now, literally. So
what was their excuse for passing this law?
So right, like whenever we send those balloons, North Korea said like they're going to make start the war, and they're going to make the Seoul like seal fires. But that is not the first time North Korea has been saying it. They've been saying it all the time for everything.
Yeah.
But now just the moon is like complete communist and sympathizer with this dictatorship. And he, of course, like what we do is sending this information and to free people's North Koreans' minds. And this bothers Kim Jong-un a lot. And I think he told the moon to stop it. So he passed a law in the name of security. But it just makes no sense. This is like 21st century where we individuals have freedoms of, speech of freedom, but then we still cannot have that.
It's very sad to see the South Korean leader have Kim Jong-un bark, which he does all the time. They do this since the 40s. Like, you better do what we say or we're going to kill you all. Yeah. And for him to be like, instead of saying go to hell, to be like, oh, yes, sir, whatever you want. It's very disturbing to see this.
It is a thing like how weak and it's just almost like I don't even get it. Like, is he spy? Like, why is he doing this, right? Like, people do not, this like South Korean, like at least government right now, do not stand up for the right thing. And it's just really mind-boggling, like what's going on. And just seeing the trend that like how the authoritarian dictators are winning right now because people are not standing up right now for their rights.
One of the things that people don't understand, a lot of them ask me, were you scared to go to North Korea and to write this book attacking the regime? And I like to pretend I'm brave and I'm a big shot. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so scared. But they don't really care about like Americans because we're an animal. I'm like garbage to them. But right, am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Yeah, I'm a disgusting animal. It's very different when one of their own is attacking the regime because now you're a traitor and you're speaking from an informed place.
Yeah.
How scared are you, doing this? This is this something you're concerned about in your day-to-day life?
Oh yeah, it is like, of course, I'm technically still like South Korean citizen and I am like informed by South Korean intelligence all the time, literally, that like I'm under threat. And they used to like tell me, you gotta let me know so we can protect you. And I was like, I'm not sure who's spying on me, you or me. Like maybe both Korea is going after me now.
Well, Korea is one.
I know, so like, am I gonna get killed by South Korea or North Korea? I was like, is this like the spies from North? And like, it's just really, after getting this intelligence is so tricky. You don't know who to trust. And what I had to come peace with what I do is that, I saw how Kim Jong-un was killing his half brother in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Less than 4 years ago, right? Obviously, this dictator doesn't care what other people do. And like whatever we saw this time in the Saudis, right? They were killing Jamal Khashoggi and the Saudi consul in Turkey.
Yeah.
And like what happened? He was a way bigger deal than I am. And the world do nothing about it. When these citizens get killed like that, nobody does anything. So I think it's just almost like, it's not up to me. Like if a dictator or nation against you, no matter what I do, if Kim Jong-un wants to kill me, I will get killed.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter what security firm I hire, it's gonna happen. So I guess that's why so I just don't take tomorrow for granted and just do whatever thing I care right now.
What was your reaction seeing a top North Korean official in the Oval Office?
You mean Tae-yong or no?
Under Trump, they were talking, and we had a North Korean official sitting in the White House.
Yep. It was just. So I get that we have to, of course, going a war with North Korea should not be the first option. Diplomacy should come first, and I was fine. But sitting with Trump, Kim Jong-un was disgusting. Trump was treating him like a human being, not as a dictator. And because we're sitting with Kim Jong-un as equal standing, putting North Korean and American flag in an equal position is a very symbolic thing to show North Koreans that actually America is backing this dictator, to the North Korean elite, that America is accepting his legitimacy. But having the official in White House is fine, and they gotta talk about diplomacy and what they can do peacefully. I think I'm for that. But just making this move where Trump is giving everything that Kim Jong-un wants was just unbelievable just to watch.
Hey guys, want to take a second? Talking about North Korea makes everyone uncomfortable, but this is going to be the weirdest transition I've ever done. Nothing makes you more comfortable than sheath underwear. Made by a vet. Sheath are the most comfortable boxer briefs you're ever going to wear. They've got a dual pouch system, which hold both parts of your anatomy, guys. And I wear them every day. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice20, you get 20% off your order. You'll be supporting the show. Lewis wears them. Don't you want to dress like Lewis? I don't. Well, you should still wear sheath. No more chafing, no more sweat, just comfort and support. You can wear them. Try them. Here's the thing. You hear about this dual pouch system. You're like, this is crazy. And then you try them on and you're like, oh, I should have listened to Malice all along. These are the most comfortable underwear I've ever worn. And because I use promo code Malice20 at sheathunderwear.com, I get 20% off my entire order. Yeah, you're welcome. Let's get back to the show. Everyone who's on Facebook knows exactly what will happen when Kim Jong-un dies, and that's his sister is going to take over. How likely do you think it would be to have a woman leading North Korea?
So I know a lot of like high officials and still have in touch with Pyongyang. And I mean, we've been talking, and the thing is like, if anyone says they know, I think that's lying. When
Yeah,
it comes
that's
to
what I
North
said.
Korea,
Yeah.
right? Like literally, we can speculate what can happen. I mean, anything's possible. What is that? But if we really think about North Korea, though, I think it's gonna be very less likely. And in a way, because already people in North Korea are not happy with Kim Jong Un because they had so much hope for him when he came in. People thought, okay, he was foreign educated, he was young, and maybe he is going to be the reformer. Elites in North Korea want to reform. Of course, every single person in North Korea was reform, opening up the economy. Every literally person. And they now realize even with young Kim, they can get that. So I don't think really people is gonna give another chance to women, especially in a society where the most common thing in North Korea was, men are sky and the women are the ground. So the difference, our standing can never met. It's like literally that's the most common phrase that we have. The man is the sky. That is how far different our standings are. So, I mean, there's no even vocabulary like feminism in North Korea. We don't even, like, of course, we don't even know what human rights, right?
Right, of
And
course.
how
Yeah.
do you know what like gender equality means?
Yeah.
Like every day women get beaten by their husbands. I mean, that was every household, it was a very common thing. And like literally in the same table, we are not even allowed to sit with the men to eat together. Like every household, the father's spoon and chopsticks are very different. And like we cannot start eating until our father starts eating, and we cannot be done until they are done. So I mean, this was the 21st century when I was there, and that's why I think that's gotta be a bit too much for North Koreans to take.
Is there anything that besides your friends that you miss about North Korea?
Well, other than people,
Yeah.
other than the people, well, I guess I don't know. I am still attached to the land of my like the mountains, the rivers that I walked. And North Korea is a very mountainous, beautiful country. Like I'm in Chicago and I miss all those mountains. It's a very beautiful country. So I miss that nature and people.
It's have things since you left gotten better or gotten worse for the North Korean people, in your opinion?
Oh my God, everything got worse. Like you see that right now, like 4 months ago, there was only one person got out from Hanawan. One. And last month was 0. So escaping out of North Korea under Kim Jong-un became impossible. Kim Jong-un, of course, made a high electrified wire fence the entire border. He made North Korea into a concentration camp. So he didn't like put on those highly electrified like the fences just for the concentration camp on the whole entire border. Why he can't even afford to give the people the electricity even.
Yeah, right.
It was so weak, right? And he didn't even stop there. He planted landmines on those like electrified like those fences for the general population to the landmines. And then he told the border guards that do not even let one single ant cross over from China. And that's why now we don't see any defectors from North Korea. I mean, the ones that arrive in like 1 or 2 arriving to South Korea are the ones who escaped before and were hiding in China for several years. Those are the ones that are coming, but no fresh defectors are coming out.
That's very disturbing to hear. I did not know that. One of the things that I always stress when talking about North Korea and the North Korean people is how normal they are.
Yeah.
How, the boys are going to give you an attitude. And when I was there, I would wave at every girl and they'd giggle, like the Asian women. And I would talk to my guide and she would tell me jokes. It really kind of is disturbing to me how so many people in the West think it's a country of robots.
Yeah.
Because if it was a country of robots, then the dictatorship would work, right? Then it's like, we have robots, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, did you spend time with your friends socializing? Like, what would you do? Did you have spare time when you were there?
In North Korea?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, like yeah, I was. I mean, we as a girl, I was a young girl. I mean, I'm a child, of course, but you don't have like Barbies. We don't have any toys. Like I didn't play with any toys. I used to, make like with the mud and make tanks. That's the only thing they teach us in school. And like I demanded my father to cut the wood to make a gun. Yeah. And like I went to Russia and I saw a lot of the boys were doing that in the parks. Like that was so familiar. So yeah, making guns and tanks. I still know how to make a tank with my Play-Doh for my son. and and yeah, I also like Kim Il Sung demanded to every child in North Korea to raise rabbits.
Right.
Because it was very mountainous, he demanded that every child raise 5 rabbits each year and then take the skin out and give it to the soldiers who make their like a winter jacket and then eat the meat for yourselves. So I had to always go to mountains to get the rabbit food, and I go with my friends and just like go to a lot of these mountains and pick up flowers and
But that
plants.
sounds like a lot of fun in a way. Like you're socializing, it's beautiful. You
Yeah.
can gossip, I'm sure, tell jokes.
Right. So, but the thing is, like, if that's what you do for like occasionally, it can
Sure.
be very fun. But if that's like all you got every single day,
Oh,
and
it's every day?
oh yes, of course
Oh,
and you have to bring the like it was assignment to even school. So school has rabbits too. They have their quota. So in Austria, everybody got a quota from the regime, right? Like it's not like I decide today I'm gonna do this today. Like it's not like I can make the plan for my day. I don't own myself in North Korea. I'm owned by the state. So they can me every single day give the quota to mom, my father, myself, everybody gets it. Therefore, like I have to go every day pick up those plants and winter time you just have to pick up a lot of poops. Yeah, I'm sure you heard that story, right? It's like
which one?
we don't have any fertilizer in North Korea.
Right. Oh, yeah, yes.
And how they do that, they demand people to submit poo-poo from home. And of course, we don't even eat that much. How do you find 1 ton of poop from each family? So we literally go outside and hunt the poops every winter. So that's how we spend. In the winter, we're looking for poop, and during the summer, we're looking for like rabbit food. And that's how every year passes by.
As you mentioned earlier, during the 90s, when the dear leader Kim Jong-il took over, this enormous famine took over North Korea. I think 1 to 2 million people died. This was genocide. This was the government by intention. They would not allow foreign aid to come in and give them food. Kim Jong-il said if the UN come in, then they're not going to need the government. So he chose to let up to 2 million of his people starve.
Yeah.
It got so bad that polio even came back in certain parts of North Korea. Can you tell us how that affected you and your family?
So I was born in 1993 October, and Kim Il Sung died on the 1994 July, I think 8th. So like about like 6 months after I was born, and the countries went upside down. And after his death, Kim Jong Il like spent billions of dollars to build that Kumsusan Kim where you went, I'm sure, preserving Kim's body.
Yes, of course, the mausoleum. Yeah,
mausoleum of North Korea. He spent millions of cash on that. And then the Soviet Union collapsed, right, in 1991, and they stopped giving food. And people until then, like all the thing we were relying on was public ration. Regime was giving us ration, and when I was born, I never even knew what ration was. They didn't give us. So that was almost like the filtering time, we North Koreans say. All the ones who were like actual warrior believers in the revolution of socialism died because they refused to engage in black market. So my time, money was not a shameful thing, but like my mom's time, talking about money was so embarrassing and shameful. They would get really upset if someone talked about money. They would say, our dear leader is providing everything. Why would you do that?
right.
So in the 90s, but that's why I was talking about seeing the dead bodies every single day. Like when I wake up, especially near the train station, piles of them dead in the winter time, and there's some collectors we don't even have cars, like the push and carry carriage that Japan used to like getting found. They just put the bodies on top and each other. and they don't even bother to dig a ground. They just push them and they there. It was so I that's why I somehow thought that was normal. I never learned like things that the body something was done. There's nobody told me the concept of compassion. So nobody told me that was unusual, and every single thing I saw was since my birth was just dead bodies all the time. So yeah, I mean, so that's how I thought the world was going. I mean, would to be that time actually at least.
Yeah, I talked to another refugee because during this period there were a lot of children who became orphans because their parents starved to death, and they'd be homeless and trying to get food.
Yeah.
And I asked her and I said, did you feel bad for all these little kids? And in her North Korean mentality, she goes, no, I thought they were annoying. So it's such a perversion of what is normal and decent. One is you see starving children, you're like, get away from me, instead of how horrible. But I just really want to stress the point you just made, which is the regime punished the ones who believed in it the most. That when the famine hit, when Kim Jong-il chose not to deliver food for the people, the ones who were honest and good people who did what they were told, who believed in the dear leader, who said, no, I'm going to play by the rules, they were the first ones to starve. And it's the people who decided to cheat or to think for themselves and to do things that were shameful, they were the ones who managed to live.
Yeah, so it was true. Like a lot of people refused to do anything. They were like, I believe in this revolution, and they were of course the first ones died. And I think the thing I really shocked me was the North Korean regime has internal this standard they have is as long as they maintain 10% population alive, which is people in Pyongyang, they consider that to be a successful rule. So until 90% of dies, they're not going to do a thing to do it. And it came back right now. That's what the regime is doing again with the COVID. It's not like almost like the 90s, the August, like March. That great famine came back to North Korea. And Kim Jong-un is like, as you saw, the 8th Congress, like last month, he's demanding every resources to be spent for the developing better missiles and nukes. So that's why this regime is keep doing these things is why so irrational? Like, how are people are dying? Why are you spending so much money for your luxury resorts? Why are you doing this, keep making nukes? Nobody's attacking you. We don't get that. But because they internally, they think like as long as they keep the 10% alive, they don't have to do a thing about it. And I was like, I just, these morons, I just don't know how is this possible? Like, how idiots when you give this much power to government, what they're going to do with it, it just is unthinkable.
Yeah, it's amazing because so much of the propaganda is how much they love the people, how much they care about the people. The difference in the North Korean leadership and other countries is that the leaders do field guidance. Every day in the newspaper, he's at a bottle factory, he's in a farm, he's teaching the farmers how to farm, he's teaching them how to make glass bottles, and everyone's happy. And in reality, it's to have it be so explicit. We don't care if you live or die.
Yeah, no.
It's complete night and day.
Yeah. So in a way, I guess like even regime like wants people dead in some ways because it's easier to rule with a small population. And I think maybe that's what's going on. I really don't understand right now with this COVID, like regime completely shut down the border. And people are dying from starvation. Of course, always been people dying from starvation in North Korea, but the degree, the actually went up. And Kim Jong-un wouldn't say a thing about it. And that's why I just don't understand how they're thinking.
Oh, that's very disturbing to hear, and I'm very sorry to hear that. How do you have a bunch of like North Korean refugee friends that you form a little community outside?
Yeah, I do have a lot of defector friends, and in a way, South Koreans wouldn't be friends with me because I'm a North Korean. So I am, will be forced to be only friends with the North Koreans, all Americans. So I don't have in my friends circle anybody South Korean. And all my friends are actually North Koreans or Americans, or like Europeans.
What do you think Americans misunderstand the most about the North Korean experience?
So I think there are like two types, right? Like one type, like do not want to believe things can be that bad.
Yeah.
They think, like, you are like kidding me. How are people dying from starvation?
Right.
Like when we went to South Korea, I had this like lecture. My friend, she said she went to lecture in elementary school, and she said like how children are starving in North Korea and the growth stunts, right?
Yeah.
Now North Korean men, if they are like 4 feet and 8 inch, they must go to mandatory to go to military. And 4 feet 8 inches is like what, child size.
Yeah.
And that's what North Korean adult size now these days, like around 5 feet for men. And I'm 5'2". You saw me, I'm very short. A lot of North Korean men are shorter than me. So getting shorter, people are becoming like this short from this like malnutrition. And South Korean literature says, why didn't you should eat some ramen then? Why did you go hungry? Yeah, so this is the thing, like literally people do not like want to even, like, I'm sure it's hard to imagine, right? Like when you're living in this kind of prosperity that I'm sure maybe their imagination doesn't reach there. And that is the one group that I always deal with, like, oh, yo, come on, don't get exaggerated. Don't be like sensationalizing, tell me the truth, like what? So how it's like really actually is, like, come on, it's not me saying it. It's the United Nations right now came out saying the 60% of North Korea's entire population is severely malnourished. The UN says it right now, and people don't want to believe it. The other group is, and like what you said, right? The people think about North Koreans more a bit different, more like a bit of like more brainwashed robots who doesn't really feel the same things that we feel. And as soon as I tell them like I'm from North Korea, they get shocked. They're like, oh my God, you look like me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
You're a human being.
Yeah, like I look like you. What did you think I would look like? I'm North Korean. So, and then like, yes, and then just some people just really don't care. They're like, oh, it's what's the deal with me? And I think that's like the general like American like perception of North Korea.
Well, in their defense, there's so little we can do as Americans, especially as private citizens. So,
I think that's like the thing. There are tons to. There's tons can be done, but I think somehow they just justifying it, right? If there's a Holocaust happening, and there's something you can do and you don't do it, but only way you can feel good about yourself is telling yourself, okay, there's nothing I can do about it.
But what would you tell Americans to do?
I mean, there is tons to do, right? So first of all, we can collectively raise our voice to demand Chinese Communist Party to stop sponsoring dictatorship. North Korea can never exist alone.
Yes.
China is a problem. The Chinese Communist Party is like the sole like responsible party for this tragedy. And they are still catching North Koreans and sending them back to North Korea. Like I was sold in this 21st century less than $300 as a virgin to a sex slave. People talking about slavery that happened hundreds of years ago. It's happening right now. And people say, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. No, we can write the letters to our congressmen. We can do boycott the campaign that China does. I mean, look at just Hollywood. Everybody's like in bed with China to get the market share and do not do the right thing right now. So as long as we can convince China to stop sponsoring the dictatorship, we can free North Korean people. How simple is that? Like, all it takes is convincing China to do the right thing.
But I mean, it's not that simple, as you know, because these people are evil. They are very committed to power, and they get off on telling Americans, go to hell, we're going to do what we want.
Right. So, but the thing is, like, to bring down the dictatorship in North Korea, all it takes is, like, of course, the continuously what we have a sanction. And if China stops sending oil to North Korea, if just for a month, how Kim Jong-un gonna test the nuke? How is he gonna drive his Benz in Pyongyang? Nothing gonna work in North Korea because they don't produce the oil. And that's all it literally takes. But of course, China just keep giving the oil to them. So when the United Nations sanctions comes, and every time when we try to stop the regime, there's one thing that always China disobeys. That's like keep providing the oil to the North Korean regime, so the regime can continue to develop your news. People are like this. There are tons of people say, "Oh, we need the humanitarian aid to go in. We need to feed the people." That's fine. Like, even though it doesn't go to people, I can see that. Okay, give it to the people, whatever it takes. But then, can we cut the like oil supply? I mean, that is all we need to. I mean, end the regime. And
But you were talking about starving the regime. Wouldn't the people be the first ones starved? And the regime has enough money they could figure it out somehow?
That is the thing. So people have been already starved. And the thing is that if, as you say, if the money that South Korea was spent during the Kim Il-sung the Sunshine Policy, they were spending billions of dollars. The United Nations, they've been giving so much humanitarian aid. In the name of humanitarian, they're giving so much. Where this has been going, this has
it's
been
on their
going.
pockets.
Of course, the elites and only the military. So almost like who does that? Like if South Korea and America and North Korea is still in the war didn't end. You are feeding your own the enemy's military to kill your own people. It doesn't make any logical sense. And those humanitarian things going into North Korea do not go to people and never reach the people.
Right.
If we did, I never have escaped. I wouldn't have been sold as a sexual slave at 13 in China. Who would do that, right? Because none of that came to people, to Northern people. That's why people are dying from starvation. So cutting that off is not going to change a thing for North Koreans. It will change how Kim Jong-un behaves, for sure.
Yeah, people don't appreciate how much of, even if Kim Jong-un had good intentions, if that food went to the people, that at a certain point the people are like, why are we putting up with this jackass in Pyongyang? I want to be free, or at least I want to be different.
Yeah.
But if it's all the money going to his pockets, you're just helping him reinforce, just giving this charity. It's just bribes for him. You're basically paying him to stay in power.
Exactly. That's what that's what South Korea been doing, right? Like everything we do, the foreign workers that Kim Jong-un does, sending them to like Africa to build statues to the dictators. The South Korean and North Korean hackers that steal Bitcoin and banks. They're hacking so much money right now. All these things is maintaining dictatorship, and the things that the UN sent to North Korea were helping Kim Jong-un, not the people. And that's, I think, it's really dealing with North Korea is a bit easier because it's not like Middle East. There is a religion. It's very complicated, different faith. It's not really no history there. All that matters is dictatorship, that one Kim family that we have to remove, and it will be removed if China decides to so. But China wouldn't do that. And I think that's why, but whenever I used to talk about this in the mainstream, of course it doesn't get picked up.
Right.
You know? And every business wants to go in China, and of course every main press in America do not want to bother China. And it's a thing, Michelle Obama wants to stand up for the girls who were captured by Boko Haram, the girls who were shot by Taliban or Islam get the Nobel Peace Prize. But there are people in North Korea right now, from North Korea, if they're sold in China as slaves in this 21st century, do not get any recognition from the press.
And what people in America don't realize is North Korea is so dedicated to racial purity that if a girl goes to China and gets raped or sold into slavery and she gets pregnant and they send her back, they'll beat her until she miscarries that kid because you're not going to have a mixed race baby.
Yeah, they poison it. Yeah, they literally just forcibly cut it off, and sometimes just take it out, and we kick the belly until the baby dies and mother just passes out. So
the brutalities, this is something I was very careful to do in my book, is to use a bit of a sense of humor, because as you said, if you just put it straight forward, people can't especially Americans can't wrap their heads around it. So they're like, oh, I don't even know how to deal with it. So you have to be very gentle, because it's been for so long and it's so many layers of oppression. It's hard, as I've seen you've seen in your work, it's just so overwhelming. For
but
people
this
to
is
start to understand it.
Holocaust, right? We haven't seen the Holocaust. We are repeating the history, and people keep saying it's not happening. And we did that in the past. And it's not my words, the UN, the COI report in 2014, right? They came out. The only resemblance that we can find in our history is the Holocaust and Soviet Union's, the Stalin's camp. And that's the only resemblance we can find in our history. This is a modern day Holocaust, and people just, okay, whatever.
When you left North Korea, you had a lot of TV shows and movies to catch up on, because you never got to see anything Western. So what are some of your favorite movies and TV shows that you got to pick up?
I did watch Titanic when I was in North Korea, and some James Bond. That really was some kind of turning point for me. Living in the oppression and seeing something just a love story, that pure. But after my escape in South Korea, I picked up American show Friends.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Which one do you most like? Which friend would
Oh
you
my
be?
gosh,
Are you a
Rachel.
Rachel?
And yeah, I was obsessed with the show, and it taught me English. So it was a gift for me. I watched the season from season 1 to like 10. Each season got 24 episodes. I watched it 30 times more than.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's how I'm like speaking English right now. Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
what's your favorite episode? Because I know which one my favorite episode is.
I don't know. I like season like end of 2 to 3 when the Ross comes back from China and all that
Oh,
love story. Yeah, yeah.
I think the best episode is when they had to switch apartments after they had that quiz. Remember
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And they're like, they had to figure out who knows each other best. I thought that was a very
yeah,
sweet little
yeah.
episode.
That is.
Okay, Yeon-mi, we're running out of time.
Yep.
What has been your favorite part of this interview?
This was really just you were helping me to spread what's happening, the truth. I think that's very important. And like you said, it's really truly sad that there are so many other, like if you think about Cuba or Iran, Iraq, there's so many other dissidents fighting for the same cause. And
Yes.
from North Korean defectors, one is of course they are putting their family and their life in danger. So a lot of women do not want to speak up. And two, the defectors who survived what I went through, the trafficking and rape, they are still in South Korea, and South Korea still shames rape victims, and they cannot talk about it. So it's really like, and also other layers also they don't speak English. So collective all these obstacles, it's very hard for North Koreans to have a voice and become like start international movement. And I think that's why I'm very grateful that I just had the opportunity to share. Yeah.
You are welcome.